Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Checking in on the Canadian MJ sector, so we had a little bit of good news. Some small companies getting some injections of capital from larger companies. We're settling in with the fact that CEO Bruce is gone, with the fact that CTST was scamming and knew about it. Not scamming, but breaking the law. So we're digesting the bad news. We're looking towards hopefully some potential short-term good news, and we're watching for the inevitable shift. The Canadian MJ names don't really have much as far as a shift going on. We know what needs to happen. We need a daily trend change. Again, it's been 3 months without a daily trend change on these major names. That is essential. And CGC needs to lead the way as the sector leader. So continuing to watch for that happening, continuing to look towards October and December, and extraction plays potentially getting some hype, and watching to see how the market shifts heading into that season and those events. And also watching the USMJ sector. So again, we keep finding ourselves in situations saying, okay, here's the start of a little shift, and I'm referring to the US sector right now, but here's the start of a shift. This is what has to happen for the bulls to start to prove something. And in the past couple months, that's happened a few times, and the bulls have never gotten that follow through and taken the steps required to prove to us trend changes. So that's still something we're watching for, but we're in a scenario right now where there's that slight little shift, and we're saying, okay, this is the start. Now you got to prove it, bulls. So that's where we stand, and I do see some more short-term opportunity in USMJ as opposed to Canadian MJ, apart from just a name or two here that we'll look at in just a second. So let's get right into it. So CGC, unable to see a bull break here. We rejected with the big upper wick, but we are still holding support, just barely. Obviously, we're much closer to a bear break than a bull break. We have 34.14 and 33.38 as the only two nearby supports, and our resistance is clearly set at 36.31 and 36.74. If the bulls cannot break 36.74 this coming week, it is a letdown, and it is a victory for the bears, and the daily exponential resistance, which has been rejecting the price for the last month, will remain as resistance. Cron also pulling back a bit, but it has a daily higher low to be watching, and actually CGC does as well. But Cron got a little bit more follow through. You could call this a daily trend change on Cron, but of course we have to see other names follow through as well. Otherwise, Cron's likely not going to get very far as an individual. So looking at 1447 as support, bulls held that on Friday, but we have to see a break of 1569 and 1585. We're looking for our weekly higher low to try and get some follow through, and unless we break 1585, we're not going to get back towards this midway point, which is where the bulls want to be in this tightening weekly range. So a red flag for Cron this coming week would be a bear break of 1447, and a bullish sign would be a break of 1585. ACB is certainly still struggling, ACB and APHA both as a pair, and again, just that correlation where if we had to break up pairings in these major Canadian MJ names, CGC and Cron have gone together for a year or two, and ACB and APH have as well. So we have our new little short-term resistance of 670. We did drop to lower lows on Friday. The next support level that we're looking down at is going to be down at 611. So 611 is the next support level. We can still pull back very significantly and still look for the monthly equilibrium to play out. So high, low, lower high, and we're scouting this monthly higher low compared to 458. So again, we could pull back 30% and still be looking to hold that level. Let's see exactly how much it is. Maybe not 30%. We could pull back 25% and still be looking to hold that level. So again, keep the monthly longer term timeframes in mind, because I do expect a ton of monthly higher lows to form in this sector, and that's the scaffolding of our trade. So if we're looking at monthly higher lows to form, we're just patiently waiting for short-term signals to indicate the potential that our monthly higher lows have formed, and that's how we're going to potentially get good entries on those monthly higher lows. Again, not just trying to catch the bottom, but waiting for a shift on the daily or even the weekly trend to try and get that monthly higher low. So I do believe ACB will form a monthly higher low compared to 458 and see a continued tightening monthly range probably into the end of the year. Checking APHA, downgrade, big hit. Again, we're pretty beat up here. Oversold 24 RSI on the daily. The weekly RSI not oversold yet. 4-hour RSI is oversold. People were asking me, are you interested in this oversold bounce on Friday? And the answer was no. If we see another red day on Monday, then we'll be getting extreme. Then I'll be interested. The 4-hour RSI will be heading down to the teens. The hourly RSI cooled off at the end of the day, so there was definitely a little bit of a bounce there, but only about a 2% bounce and very insignificant overall. So one more leg down and a couple percent of red on Monday, and I will be potentially interested to start scaling in. All depends on how the morning is shaping up and whether there's better opportunities elsewhere. I'm watching HEXO for the same thing. We'll look at that in just a second. But again, bigger picture, we are looking for a monthly higher low compared to 375 as we fade our way back down. Let's look at where we stand compared to when we had the short report. And we are back pretty much, we're under. The low of Friday is under the high of the first bounce day from that short report. So you can see this is the price range where we had, okay, the biggest wave of bears are over. The bulls are trying to buy the dip, and we had this battle zone in between $3 and $6, really, 375 and 6. So we're back in that range. So that is obviously a big setback to lose all of that move. And again, just still looking for the monthly higher low. But when we're looking at proximity, again, people, I'm not a fan of APHA because of the way management dealt with the whole short report and just if you've been watching my videos, you know that I'm not a fan of APHA. So I recognize that I have that small bias, but I also recognize that the chart of APHA is weaker than any of the Canadian MJ names, the major names, and that's been the case for a long time. So when you're looking at plays, you want names that are closer to blue sky breakout. We know in this sector that when names get to hype cycles and blue sky breakouts, there's a lot of money to be made. And if we look at a name like APHA and see where we stand right now and say, okay, when are we going to get back to blue sky breakout? We have to see a move of 260% to reach the all-time high. And then you look at a name like Cron, and how much does Cron have to see to get to an all-time high? And it's 68%. So again, it's a night and day difference where if you want to be playing names that have more favorable chances of gains, in my opinion, it's going to be the names that have less resistance, have less distance to go to get back to all-time highs, because there's less bag holders is what it really boils down to. Cron, anybody that's bought in the past 3 months may be in the red now. And if you look at APHA, that window of where anybody that's bought is in the red is a lot longer, and there's a lot more volume that's in the red. So again, that's just a perspective where you want to be taking the stronger names bullish, and APHA compared to major Canadian MJ names has a long way to go before it's ever going to shake its most bearish setup scenario. And TLRY is in that same boat. Again, because of the bag holder scenario. TLRY back to all-time highs is, 500, 600%? And there's a ton of bag holders here. So keep that in mind. We do have, still looking for a weekly higher low on TLRY, but the more we pull back, the more likely an equilibrium is as opposed to continuation. So looking at TLRY, we have a very clear daily lower high pattern. Anything under 43.51 is a lower high. I'm looking up at 45.48 as a key resistance. So again, it's the same scenario where we're getting these daily lower lows with no real bear follow through, but we're also still very clearly keeping a daily lower high pattern. When the bulls break the daily lower high pattern on the daily, or change the trend, that will be notable to me. So until that happens, it's just a slow fade of consolidation, but keeping an eye on it because we are looking for a weekly higher low, and there's a lot of names that aren't looking for a weekly higher low yet and still have a lot of work to do. So even for CGC, we would have to see a bounce, a significant bounce on this weekly chart back to towards $40 and then start consolidating, and then we'd be looking for a weekly higher low. So that's at least 3 or 4 weeks away if we get a meaningful bounce, whereas TLRY already has that meaningful bounce. So as far as potential to change the weekly trend for the bulls, TLRY has the advantage over a lot of these Canadian MJ names. Cron is similar because it's forming its weekly higher low as well, but that's just a notable difference as well. CTST, Fire the CEO took long enough, but we had a bullish reaction there. And we were watching, can this be a short squeeze? Can we get a significant amount of pressure put on the bears? And the opportunity was there. Bulls had a great move out of the gate. That's shorts covering. That's bulls getting in, breaking 235. The high of pre-market was notable. The red flag was breaking this low. So if I'm looking for a pressure on shorts, can we see a short squeeze? And are we going to get notable follow through? It comes after the first move. And this is the psychology of trends. And as I keep saying in the MJ sector, we have to see the daily higher low and higher high because that puts continued pressure on shorts. It shows sustained buying pressure. So it's the same thing on the 5-minute time frame for CTST. Great move. Bulls, putting the bears on the ropes. Healthy consolidation. We formed a higher low at 225. Okay. Now the bulls must see a new high of the day to confirm the 5-minute trend change, to put continued pressure on shorts. Any shorts that entered on that initial bull move would then be in the red, and any shorts that sat through that bull move and said, okay, well, we're going to top out and then it's going to fade again, they'd be on the ropes again. And it would show sustained buying pressure from the bulls, not just 10 minutes. And that didn't happen. So as soon as you break that low of 225, the short squeeze narrative goes out the window as far as yesterday's morning's trading. So bigger picture on the daily chart. Anything on the daily under 320 is just a lower high. There's a gap to fill up at 260. There's a gap, let's see, down at 213. So gaps in either direction, 213 to 260. And we're just looking for a daily lower high to be set. And you better believe that there's going to be some bears looking to enter and in anticipation and hoping that a license gets lost, because that would be another big blow to the share price if that were to happen. Things are settling in. The market is digesting all the bad news. And now that's really just the overhang as to the last big ammo for the bears. So if that plays out and we get news that we're not going to lose the license, I think that would be the potential for at least a short-term short squeeze, because at that point, the bears are out of short-term ammo. Everything's been priced in that's negative by the market. That would be an interesting scenario to see out, to see what the bulls could do with it. OGI is still looking for a daily higher low in this equilibrium. And if we see this inside bar break bullish and we get over $6 on Monday, then we're going to call our higher low at 579. And if we don't, then we're still looking back down towards 540. If we do get that bull break, it's $6 and 609, and we would look for a lower high probably under 650 to see this continued tightening range on the daily chart and this equilibrium play out into August. HEXO continues to dump. So again, these little bounces first thing in the morning turn me off from oversold plays. I want to see, as you know, if you've been watching, I get aggressive scaling in oversold bounce plays when the bears get aggressive. And this little flush and a quick bounce on the 5-minute time frame, that's not aggressive by the bears. That's not what I want to see, because that cools off short-term RSI levels and it allows for another leg down, which is exactly what we saw on Friday's trading. Short-term bounces and then fading to the low of the day. It is a descending triangle. On the 15-minute chart, it's visible. Triple bottom at 398 and just clear lower highs the whole morning. So 398 to 407 is the range to be watching first thing on Monday. I want to see a break of 398 and a break of 390, get things real ugly. Then I will look to scale in. In recent videos, I've been talking about, what's going on here. Is there going to be bad news coming? And people have pointed out the bad news was, I forget which portion of Canada as far as geographic location that it was off the top of my head, but some pretty hard-lined rules concerning extractions, edibles, and things like that. And that's what's taking a hit, because that's really where HEXO has a large part of their market. So that's the bad news being priced in. The question is, when is it going to be fully priced in? Keeping in mind that on the monthly time frame, we're looking for a higher low compared to 302, and I would expect 302 to hold and to bounce and set a monthly lower high. And then we'll have to watch out for the potential bearish reversal head and shoulders on the monthly chart if that does indeed play out, but that's looking into early 2020. We're not going to worry about that until we start to see a monthly bounce play out across the sector. VFF, if I had to pick anybody on the Canadian side where I could say, okay, that's the most bullish chart, VFF is shaping up that way. And if you show me this chart and compared it to charts that are in uptrends, I'd say this is a weak chart. But again, it's comparative to its peers that it's standing out as strong. We had a very significant bounce. We rejected from the lower high, where we were looking at the potential for the inverse head and shoulders pattern to indicate the trend change. Our most important support level is 1354 at this point. That's our daily high or low. And if we can get a bull break of 1533 and 1544 this coming week, that will be a notable shift. That being said, we'll still just zoom out to the weekly and say, all right, anything under 1836 is just a weekly lower high. But look at the increased bull volume. That is notable as well for me. And we can zoom in and get some details. The daily time frame, a lot of that was some climax volume, but a lot of that's solid bull volume. So the weekly chart is notable. And if we can break that resistance level, again, we're looking for a monthly higher low to form on a name like VFF, and we're right off our exponential support. So changing that daily trend shifts the odds, tilts the needle. Is our monthly higher low set? Certainly would tilt that a good bit. And then changing the weekly trend would pretty much set it all the way. Yes, our monthly higher low has been set. So again, it's on the weekly time frame. The more space that we create here, the easier it's going to be for the bulls to try and form that higher low, similar to what TLRY is trying to do over the past few weeks. So keep an eye on VFF, because again, if I had to choose names where charts are shaping up for the bulls, that is one of them. T-God continues to dump. Let's look at the monthly. Are we looking for a higher low to form? Yes, compared to 219. Closer we get to 219, the less risk there is on an entry. If I'm making a play off of 219 support and I enter at 269, I'm risking a good bit. What am I risking? 25% or so? Whereas if I enter at 240, I'm risking 10%. So it's a much different risk to reward scenario. I would like to see the price get extremely crushed heading to that key support level, because that's when we see bounces. Just like ZYNE from recent videos, we got crushed on the daily heading to weekly support, and that's where a bounce took place. So looking at the daily chart, we're in free fall. Hourly, anything under $3 is just a lower high. A little bit of a bounce at the end of the day. We'll see if that's just a bear flag, but we're going to have to see a change of the hourly trend. Resistance will be $3, and the most important resistance for me is $3.30. That's where a bounce set a clear lower high and a pivot point where the bulls were rejected. VGW, daily and sidebar. Again, it's still fairly choppy on the daily time frame. So looking at it on the weekly, I'm looking at the high, low, lower high, and the bulls are trying a higher low compared to 337. On the daily chart, anything under 425 will be a lower high. If the bulls can bounce and then change the daily trend, our weekly higher low will be set, and we'll have a nice equilibrium to be watching as we head into September. It's going to take a little while to play out, but the burden of proof is on the bulls. Have to change that daily trend back in their favor. We haven't seen 2 green days in a row in a long time here, and that's led to that really choppy, inconsistent action. LABS. So we got an uplisting coming on labs. I haven't been paying too much attention on labs because the dollar volume on names like this, not really ideal for me personally to be trading, especially because I am limited to the US side of things at this point. But 565 breaking would change the daily trend. This is a daily bull flag trying to confirm. And if we break 565, and 566 is a resistance here as well, so we'll just call it 566. But if we break that level, we have the daily trend change underway, and we then zoom out to the weekly, and actually we're breaking the weekly lower highs. So this is notable. Look at the monthly. We're scouting for the monthly higher low. That looks pretty convincing for a monthly candlestick for a higher low to be set in the uptrend. So just need that little follow through, similar to VFF. Fairly similar setup on the daily. Just need that little higher low and then break of resistance. And then from there, that will be a clear momentum shift. And we've already seen a very notable bounce from that low of $4. Just how notable? 40%. So again, higher risk, higher reward with these low cap names. They dump harder, but they bounce harder. This dump was 25% in a week and a half, and then 40% in a week and a half. NEPT, healthy consolidation. Has our daily higher low been established as we touch the exponential support with no support as a guide? That's our visual guide. The hourly trend, has it changed? No. The bulls must hold 555 on Monday and break 615 to change the hourly trend, and for us to be looking at the recent high of 657. And RTH, so this is another scenario where we had the clear setup and saying, okay, this is what the bulls have to do to get a shift in momentum, and they were unable to do it. Couldn't break 88, couldn't break 85, and it's just 78 and 76 support. And the bears still have control unless the bulls are able to get up over those resistance levels. KHRN, not a Canadian name, but sticking it here because I said so. But we've got our low. Again, nice solid bounce. Look at the gains on that bounce. But what the sector is notable for the last 3 months, 37%, what it's notable for is quick bull moves and no trend changes, no follow through. We're giving the majority of that move back, increasing bear volume slightly, and we're just looking back down at 193 or 173. Hourly RSI getting towards oversold. And if we were to get to hourly and 4-hour oversold conditions, there's a potential bottom fishing play off of that 173 support. But at this point, unless the bulls break 238, they're not proving any kind of momentum shift. I would be looking for a best case scenario for the bulls to hold 173, bounce, set a lower high compared to 238, and then just watch for a daily equilibrium into August. Best case scenario for the bears is just dropping straight to that lower low. So that's where we stand in the Canadian MJ space. I'm not really interested in these names. VFF has had some good trading opportunity. Maybe I should start to focus on that a little bit more. But otherwise, I'm keeping an eye on the US MJ names and trading other sectors, cryptocurrency and bull miners and gold and bear miners and gold as well recently. And other than that, just biding my time and being patient for the shift that we know is going to be inevitable, but also keeping a close eye on where is the shift going to take place. I do expect that the Canadian and US MJ markets will shift similar to each other, but I do believe that we are going to see one clearly outperform the other percentage-wise. I think it's going to be the US, but I have to wait to see those signs that that is indeed taking place. So I appreciate you watching. Have a good rest of your weekend. We'll see you soon. Couple nature and animal updates, and then we'll end it with a video of a bear from just a couple days ago. This was in the morning while I was doing my stock routine and then went to get some coffee. He was passing through the yard again. So I'm going to have to worry about him potentially messing with chickens or goats or the garden. But in general, he seems like he's just using the creek as a guide, really just a trail to go about his way. So it doesn't seem very interested in the property itself. So that may be an ongoing saga. So I went back to the other place that I was living, which was called the Tiny Temple, where I had all those tomatoes and cucumbers, and I've been taking the pots of the stuff that die, like the cucumbers are all done, so I took those pots and I'm putting that soil in our raised beds and putting the cucumbers and decomposing plant material in there as well. But the tomatoes are popping off. We're getting dozens and dozens of big, beautiful tomatoes. I've been making salsa with them. But I went back, and as I was moving the cucumbers, 2 big praying mantises were jumping off of it, and they were like, their bodies were like that big. And if you remember the videos where they were tiny, tiny, certainly all grown up, and nice to see that some of them survived. So I got a video of that somewhere, but it's on a cell phone and it's bad footage, so maybe I'll dig that up when I'm contentless. Other duck stuff. Went out the other day in the evening to stretch by the pond after wrapping up a work day, and I've seen the ducks stretch before as individuals, but they all were stretching in unison with me in terms of, moving their wings and stretching their legs out, and I thought that was really funny. I've never seen them do that as a group before. So, what else? Ducks. Yesterday I fed them, and Mom usually stands on the back, and the ducks run up to the bird feeder to try and get some scraps, and I throw some food down for them there, some corn and all that good stuff. And she just watches, so I have to give her separate food. So I went and gave her separate food. She was on the other side of a raised bed, and it was the funniest thing that I've seen in a long time, where she would put her head down and take a bite of food, and then every second she would pop up and look, and her head was she would disappear, and then her little head would come over the raised bed. I'll have to try and film it because it's hysterical. What else we got? Bear, ducks. The hawk dove after the ducks recently. I made some food and was heading out to eat it on the porch, and I had my hands filled with plates and bowls and stuff, and the ducks were running from one pond to the other right as I walked outside, and the hawk swooped down at them. Didn't really try and make a full attempt to get one of them, but definitely an ongoing concern of Mama Duck is that hawk is around. So I ran it off, and a lot of people say, you should just let it eat the ducks and let nature be nature. Yeah, that's one way to look at it, but the way that I look at it is that hawk has not eaten a duck in many months, and it's been fine. And I've also watched it catch multiple frogs. So the hawk can stay alive and sustain itself and keep doing its frog thing. It doesn't have to eat the ducks, and my goal is to keep those ducks safe. So I'm going to keep doing it. Other than that, I'll see you all soon.